Hello and welcome to Star USA Training. Today is Tuesday, November 21st, and we'll be talking about the path to being a licensed customs broker and talk a little bit about the continuing education requirements that Customs is getting ready to implement. We are recording this webinar. The slides, the recording, and any other materials will be made available after the broadcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, there is a link to our website for materials in the description of the video. I'll answer some questions throughout, and I will take more at the end. There is one NCB FAA credit available for continuing education credits for CCS participants. The code is at the end of the webinar, and we'll send it out with the email of the recording. We have a joke at STAR about how no one intends to work in this field. We all sort of stumble into it. That's true for literally every person here except for our president. And the only reason he expected to work in this field is because his parents started the company and they stumbled into it themselves. I started when I moved to Ohio. I took a short-term data entry job here at STAR that morphed into a long-term job. I did audit software development assistance while I was going to school for my master's in social work. I worked in that field for a time, and then I came back to Star USA working on import activity audits. So really digging into the entries and figuring out what was going on with a company's import profile and giving them advice and making corrections and setting up processes. During that time, I also worked with STAR's founder, Peggy Easton, on the Customs Broker License Exam prep course that she taught. I did a bunch of the administrative elements. I enjoy a challenge, and so when I heard that the test had very low pass rates, I decided, why not take it? I took the course from Peggy and the test. I passed them both, and then I started managing clients, started managing some of our staff, and then I moved into my current role where I work in regulatory and training. I also now teach the Customs Broker Exam prep course that STAR puts on. I am a very big nerd, and I like making complex pieces fit together, but you don't have to be that all in order to benefit from a broker's license. STAR is a consulting, advice, training, and services firm in the field of international trade and compliance. We're based out of Northeast Ohio, and for the past few decades, we've provided an array of services to importers, exporters, brokers, carriers, and forwarders of many different sizes and skill levels. We were founded because Peggy and Mike got together and saw all these companies that were just floundering, trying to figure out how to import and export compliantly, and working with all their broker friends who were trying to figure out how to help their clients. They realized knowledge is power, and sharing our experiences can help you improve and strengthen yourself as an individual while providing value to your organizations. We are CTPAT certified as a customs broker, and our biggest joy is finding the right balance of service and compliance for our clients. My name's Jo Harper. I'm a principal here with Star USA. I have my customs broker license, and I've been in the international trade business for more than a decade. Our course starts in about a month. Keep in mind that we have the Peggy Easton Scholarship, where we give away the tuition for the course. I'll remind you at the end of the webinar, and we'll send the link to the application out when we email the recording. Just like every career, being a licensed customs broker has its ups and downs, but we think it's a super cool career path. A customs broker license is a valuable credential. It gives you membership into an elite group of professionals. Trade compliance people are a unique bunch that work hard and have a lot of fun. If you have ever been to a trade compliance conference, you know that that is accurate. There's about 16,000 active licensed customs brokers in the United States. We expect that number to decrease as the continuing education credit requirement is implemented and retired customs brokers who still are licensed decide to voluntarily suspend their license instead of going through and keeping up on CEUs. Increased knowledge tends to make you more valuable to employees. It shows that you're ambitious and that you are professionally motivated. There's a shortage of licensed customs brokers everywhere. This much knowledge and responsibility is important to a lot of companies. Going after something this difficult tells companies that you are ambitious and motivated. Many careers show a decrease in the past few years. There's a combination of generations that have come before and paved the way as brokers, aging out, as well as the sped up retirement process that we saw as a result of pandemic and burnout. Many compliance professionals find that getting a license leads to increased earning potential. Generally, income averages vary depending on which state you're in. In the DC area, you're probably looking at a higher salary. Some salaries are in the $50,000 range, some are in the $80,000 to $90,000 range. Usually we see that entry level is about $50,000 a year. Management salaries can be in the low six figures. This tends to be an extremely secure job and career path. Many jobs might be for customs brokerages, but you can also find a lot of employment with manufacturers, importers, or exporters. The law is that companies are responsible for their own activities, so they often benefit from having the knowledgeable attention of an expert focused solely on their operations. The past few years have seen a really big change in the labor market. There's around 16,000 brokers and a projected 30,000 job openings. So there's a really high demand for this profession. Companies know that government agencies are stepping up enforcement, and they want to be prepared. There are also a lot more complex compliance programs. Things like forced labor and watching your supply chain are coming into play, and companies have to watch out for that. I'm going to walk you through a very simplified guide to getting your license. The first step is making the decision. You need to find your why you're doing this. This way, when it's tough, it's overwhelming, and you don't want to study, you can come back to the reasons why you want to do it. Anytime that you are doing something difficult, you're going to find doubt. You're going to run into barriers along the way. And spending time at the beginning, running through why you're doing something, allows you to make good decisions and reorient yourself along the way, as well as to evaluate when something is working for you and when it isn't. This is a tricky path because the exam is a very tough professional exam, similar to the bar for lawyers, and it will take time, effort, and energy to prepare for it. The best predictor that I have seen in success in our course is having other people you can talk with and work with. We offer study buddies to connect you with others who are testing so that you develop professional contacts along the way and someone you can commiserate with when you're up until 2 a.m. studying, or you're very tired of the way that I pronounce a word in our recorded lessons, or you just do not understand why customs would ask a question this way. The best thing you can do is firmly make the decision and understand why and how you're going to cope with the reasons why not. Then you're going to want to find a prep course. You do not have to take a prep course. You have to be a U.S. citizen to take the exam. You have to be at least 18 years old, and you may not be a government employee. You do not have to take a prep course, but one is extremely helpful. Don't try to reinvent the wheel and figure it all out on your own. It's such a unique exam that having knowledge and skills to approach the exam is really valuable. It should give you on-demand lessons, sessions with the instructor, handouts, resources, homework that lets you work through at a set pace so you don't work really hard at the beginning or burn yourself out. It should give you some review and let you participate in discussions. All of those things are going to hit different areas of your brain, and that's going to help you create more hooks to hang your resources on. Then gather your resources. The exam is an open book, open note test. You can take any written materials you'd like. You may not take electronic devices. A huge part of our course is aimed at helping you develop the resources that you're going to take into your exam, as well as into your ongoing practice. I personally use the resources that we develop weekly in the work that I do with our clients, and I give it to our clients a lot as I'm training them. These are the required references that are here in bullets on the screen. The Harmonized Tariff Schedule of the United States, and generally you will need the same version of that for the October exam and the April exam of the following year. For this year, October 2023 used the 2023 HTS, and we expect the April exam next year to also use that. The reason that Customs staggers it that way is because the version of the HTS that they use for testing doesn't come out until January, and most people begin their studying and their prep before January when they're taking the April exam. So you use the current year's version of the HTS for the October course and the past year's version of the HTS for the April exam. You also need parts 0 through 199 of Title 19 of the Code of Federal Regulations. That covers the customs broker regulations. Then you'll need the version of the ACE business rules and process document that's currently implemented. Right now we're on version 11. And the ACE entry summary instructions. These have replaced the Customs Form 7501 and its instructions because most entries are now filed in ACE via the automated broker interface. Then the other required reference that's almost always on there is the Right to Make Entry Directive 3530-002A. You should be familiar with all of these, not just have a copy of them. When I tested, we were still testing in person at a federal building, and I stood in line with people who were unwrapping their copies of the CFR as they walked in. I am a giant dork, and I walked in with a suitcase full of all of my references, tabbed, color-coded, with 2 different binders that were themed. I passed the exam. Those people did not. The timed test means that you have to have your references organized so you can quickly flip to the right spot. There are thousands of pages of testing material just in the required references, so it's super difficult to get to the right spot without having them prepared and being familiar with them. People can also make the mistake of bringing in reams of written references instead of narrowing it down to just helpful references, helpful cheat sheets, quick reference guides. That works if all you're trying to do is find the right information, but you have the combination of needing the right information and needing to do it very quickly. That makes it very tricky. Then you want to study a lot. In the months leading up to the exam, you will spend most of your free time studying, and that is when you and your loved ones are going to need to remember why you're doing it. The test is 80 questions. You have to get 60 of them correct in order to pass. Those questions can cover any topics from the regulations, the tariff, those ACE business rules details. You want to be familiar enough with 2 feet of resources that you can either answer it or quickly flip there. You also want to be very familiar with the way that Customs asks questions. They have a very specific way of approaching topics. Your aim when studying is to familiarize yourself with the testing style and the content. There's a lot of tricks in there, and you have to learn them. Then register for the exam. Customs posts their notice of examination on their website. We put a link to it in the slides. You can check out the one that's currently up for October. They will update it for the April exam, maybe January. Applicants need to apply online no later than 30 days before the exam date. The examination fee is now $390. It used to be $200. Those were the days. And there are a couple different components of registration. You have to sign up on ecbp.gov, fill out the application for the exam, pay the fee, and then after that, an email will notify you that it's time for site selection. That's usually after registration closes, which is 30 days before the exam, anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks before the exam that you get the email to register for site selection. You then select the testing site from the providers that's most convenient for you. Space in the testing sites tends to be limited, so you want to select your site early so you don't have to drive 6 or 8 hours in order to go to a testing spot. The test is administered by third-party testing services like Pearson VUE or PSI. There are sometimes test takers on site testing for other careers, and customs is not present at those exams. Some companies will reimburse you for the exam if you're working for them, and some of them will even pay for your course, which is super handy. Then you're going to take the exam. It is electronic. All of the questions and answers are on the computer. They're given at the contracted testing sites all over the United States. It starts at 8:30 a.m. local time and takes 4.5 hours. Customs does have a remote testing option. We see that not be recommended because there are often a lot of technological issues that come up that interrupt your testing process. And you really want to be able to enter a state of flow and smoothly work through the exam. You don't want it to be broken up by things outside of your control. You also don't want to pay for it and get all prepared for it and spend all your anxiety on it and then not be able to take it. You can get additional time for your exam if you have documented disabilities or learning disorders that require additional time. It usually is on the 4th Wednesday in April and October. Ideally, the next one is going to be April 24th, 2024. When you get to the site, you go in, show your identification. You are often searched and your belongings are searched. You set up your references and you lock up everything else that you're not allowed to bring in, like your cell phone, any other electronics. Some testing sites are really strict about the kind of jewelry and clothing that you can wear in. You also can't bring snacks into the testing area. You have to lock them up in a locker outside. Once you're finished testing on the computer, some sites will let you leave when you're done, and others will require you stay until everyone else taking the broker's exam is done testing. And then you are not allowed to talk about the exam until after midnight on the day of testing. And the theory behind that is it helps prevent cheating in other time zones. Then you're going to wait for your results. The results will be emailed to you within 60 days of the exam. Usually, the exam and the exam key are posted on Customs website before you get the email. You will get a copy of your answers, not a copy of the test, but a copy of your answers as you leave the exam, or they'll email it to you when you leave the exam. You can also write down your answers and the reasoning you had behind those answers to compare it to the posted answers and prepare any protests or appeals that you want to submit if you don't pass. After you get notice that you passed the exam, you can apply for a license. You have to apply for the license within 3 years of passing the exam, so you need to be 21 years old and a citizen. Your local port is the best spot to submit, or Customs is getting ready to implement processing centers for brokers. The application fee is $200, plus there's a fingerprint check and processing fees, and you want to apply where you're going to transact Customs business as a broker. Once you submit your license application, Customs is going to go through multiple levels of review. There will be a multi-agency background investigation. Then Customs themselves will review your license app and forward recommendations to customs headquarters, who will evaluate and send back their recommendations to your local port, and then your local port will have someone interview you. The background investigation has fingerprint analysis, character references, credit reports, and arrest records. Having arrests or conviction does not necessarily preclude issuing a license. It is very dependent on what the conviction was for and what has happened since then. The length of time it takes to complete the process varies depending on many factors. Some of those are the completeness of the application, how many different places the applicant has lived, and how well-staffed customs is. Customs tries to issue licenses within 6 months of applying. When I was licensed 8 to 10 years ago, it took 2 months for me to get my license. But we just had a staff member go through and it took over a year. The license review process right now is 8 to 12 months because customs is also shorthanded. Then once you get that license, celebrate. You did it. You have become a licensed customs broker. And then the last step is maintaining your license. Every few years, you need to complete the triennial status report to maintain your license. The next one upcoming is due February 2024, and then they're triennial because they're due every 3 years. So 2027 is the next one, and then 2030. You also need to stay updated on what customs is doing and how they are changing requirements. Things like continuing education units and the switch from district permits to national permits. The switch to national permits was a lot of fun for us because customs has historically asked a lot of questions about the way district permits work on the exam because they don't want students to be caught off guard if they start doing business in another port, and making sure that they have the correct permitting, no matter where they are, what district they're functioning in. This year, Customs said district permits are silly. Everything is electronic, so we're all using national permits for remote location filing anyway. We don't have to have this district shenanigans. Let's move everyone to national permits. That's fantastic, but it meant we had to rewrite a lot of old questions so that people could practice using the current regs. Let's talk about what to expect on the exam. We've talked a little bit about it as we went through, but we're going to dig in some more. The exam is 80 multiple choice questions. People usually look at that and they think, I'm a really good standardized tester. It won't take that long. It's not that hard. I am here to tell you, as someone who is a very good standardized tester, it is that hard. It is that time consuming. If you are speeding through it, you are doing something wrong. You need to take your time and think carefully because customs is tricky and they are that way on purpose. The exam lasts 4.5 hours. You can also get accommodations for it to be longer. A passing score is 75% or higher, so you need to answer 60 questions right to pass. That also means you can get 20 questions wrong. It is only given twice a year. There are some exceptions to that if you study for the exam with us, you will learn all about. It is open book. You have to bring the required references that Customs says, otherwise you will not be able to answer the questions. I suppose you could go in without any references, but no one's memory is that good. Customs does have built-in electronic references in the exam. I will tell you now, and I will tell you repeatedly through our course if you take it, do not use them. They crash the test. They are extremely frustrating. The search takes a very long time. You will lose so much time if your required references are the electronic ones. And if you use electronic references as you are preparing for the exam, and then you try to test day of using paper references that you are not familiar with, you will also not be successful. We highly recommend using paper references that you are familiar with and that you have used through your preparation process for that exam. There is no limit other than your pocketbook, your time, and your sanity on how many times you can take this exam if you don't pass. We often work with people in our course who have tried to take the exam multiple times and not passed. And then they come to us and they work through the process and they tend to be more successful. It is especially tricky, and a lot of people that we work with are English second language, or they have a tough time with standardized testing. And again, the way customs asks questions is very tricky. It's hard, and it's meant to be hard. Topics usually cover things like entry, classification, free trade agreements, value, being a good licensed broker, powers of attorney, marking and origin of goods, ACE, drawback bonds, quota, foreign trade zones, fines and penalties, record keeping. They also might cover partner government agencies. There's a number of categories that customs will ask questions on. It's hard. The average pass rate is around 15%. The October 2022 exam was 11.1%. The April 2023 exam was 5.5% pass rate, and customs has not told us what the October 2023 exam pass rate was. Roughly 2,600 people take the exam each year. At a 15% pass rate, only around 400 of them pass it, but you can be one of them if you prepare properly. All right, here's some of our tips to pass the exam. You want to familiarize yourself with the required material, but do not try to memorize it. There is just too much material. You do also want to review past exams to learn what kinds of questions are asked the most and where you can find those answers. That helps you get familiar with the areas that customs returns to frequently. You also want to be familiar with the index for your references so that you can look things up that you've never heard of before, because invariably on every test, there is an area of the regs that they ask about that you've just never read before. You want to organize your material. It will save you a ton of time as you're testing and as you're prepping and help you quickly find what you're looking for. We recommend either a catalog rack with 3-ring sections that you can click into a stand, or a few large, heavy-duty 3-ring binders. If you put the regs and the HTS all printed out, stacked together, that's at least a foot worth of papers. And I mean 12 inches foot, not whatever size foot you have. You also want to use tabs and labels to separate each section. So again, you can think, I need origin marking. I go directly to that section. Lots of people love to highlight. If you're going to highlight, be strategic with it. Otherwise, you can just have pages full of color and not be able to find things quickly at a glance. You might put a key together, or you might just have a limit on how many words you can highlight per page. Practice classifying items in the HTS US. Classification has historically been the largest part of the exam. There's usually 15 to 20 questions on classification specifically, and many other parts of the exam refer to classification. You need to be very familiar with the rules of the GRI found at the beginning of the general notes, because that's what tells you how to classify. Always check your section and chapter notes in the catalog to find exclusions and definitions. Refer to your legal notes, and check out some informed compliance publications on topics that are hard for you, as well as check out some of customs webinars. They have their specialists go through and give a talk on the way they're interpreting specific categories of classification. Every year, there's multiple recordings, and they are fantastic. You also need to understand key valuation rules. That section is small, but the concepts spill into categories like practical exercises and entry. And you want to focus on transaction value, assists, and fees as you are working on it. You should understand the entry summary and the instructions on how to complete them. Look at the instruction sheet to know how to read the form. Usually when you're running into the exam, they'll show you pictures of partially filled out forms and ask you to fill in the blanks, or they'll show you images and ask you to interpret it. Start studying well before the test. You don't have to study every day, but repetition is key, and letting the concepts layer and build on one another and tie into each other is going to help you be more successful than cramming. Take practice exams. Customs offers past exams and answers to the public. The sample exam is available on the notification of registration page, and that's a great way to see what the testing environment looks like now that it's no longer on paper, but it does not score itself. So I do not recommend using it as a way of figuring out how you do on exams. If you just search in Google or Bing or whatever browser you use, you can look for past customs broker license examinations, and there is a website with multiple past exams. We have a link to it at the end of our slides in the resources area as well. We strongly recommend only practicing with exams from more recent years because regulations change, and you do not want to be using old exams against current regulations. We use the past 10 years or so in our course and our questions, but that takes a lot of work to update the questions so that they are currently relevant. And then we recommend a prep course, and we think ours is awesome. I will also tell you it is time-consuming and will take a lot of attention. Our current format is a 17-week online course to help you pass the exam your first try. The next one, prepping for April exam, starts December 21st. We have been teaching students how to take this exam for more than 30 years. You can register for it online. It's taught by me. I am a licensed customs broker. We have a very organized course schedule. It is formatted in a way that helps students build on concepts and successfully implement them. We have very comprehensive practice tests. They are almost all structured like the exam. However, there are a few categories where we offer additional exercises formatted in a different way to help your brain really understand the concepts before you approach it the way CBP does. You have access to online versions of past exams put into the format where you will be testing. We found that it was surprisingly tricky for students when customs switched from paper exams to electronic exams. There was a serious drop in the pass rate when that happened. And I think part of it is because it's really simple to cross out things on paper and eliminate them, and your brain understands that they're gone. But when you're testing on the computer, you can't cross them off. They're still there looking at you. One of the things that you need to practice as you test is testing in that electronic environment. And all of our homework is electronic, which lets students get very comfortable that way. We also have many study guides to help you through the course and quick reference guides for the exam and helping you build your binders. We have on-demand webinars, review sessions, materials that help you quickly learn and understand, lots of exam questions, and we have a community with the instructor and other students and the rest of our team here at STAR where you can message and ask questions. We have incredible past students. We just this last week got an email from a student who took the course from Peggy in the early 2000s and was reminiscing about doing it. And Peggy remembered him. And I know that that's true because when I work with students, and I'm lucky enough to work with hundreds of students over the years, I remember them all because I care about you passing as well. And I love the great questions and pushback that students make. And that relationship is something that I really value. And the really neat thing about the electronic community is that our students also build relationships with each other. Several of them have gone into business with each other, which is super neat. The materials are not included with the course. We do provide recommended materials to purchase from independent vendors, so you can get access to those required references quickly. We cover many topics because customs will cover many topics. This looks a little bit overwhelming, but it's broken down so that you will not drown under it. We also talk about things like Incoterms, even though it's not a category on the exam, because it helps you be a good broker and work well with your students. Here's how we stack up against other popular customs broker courses. As you can see, we're not the cheapest, but we think we are a very good course on the market, and we care a lot about your success. You get access to our course until you pass the exam, as long as you are participating in the course and working on it. We use Slack as a members-only community and chat platform. We still have people in there that took the course years ago who pop up with questions and comments and share news and check in on what's going on. We are also accredited through the LCB FAA. Registration deadline for the April exam is January 1st. And the reason we do that is because we want you to have the time to work through it at a pace that will make you successful. We've gone back and forth over the years and experimented with adding students to the course late who say they're really good at learning things fast. And they usually are really good at learning things fast, but they also burn out. We want you to learn it at a steady pace. We had a question about appeals. And for appeals, usually we and lawyers that we work with and everyone else recommend that you only appeal if you are within 3 questions of passing, because it's very hard to get customs to agree that your answer was potentially the best answer if you have to do that for a number of questions. You are rarely successful getting more than 3 questions, and you just put so much time and energy into it. Additionally, appeals take a very long time for customs to process. Sometimes they're fast and they'll process them quickly. We have seen appeals drag on for 2 years, 5 years. You want to not waste your time appealing unless you know you're going to be successful. We currently have 2 students from this last course who are appealing. It's not a very high percentage that need to appeal. All right, let's talk about CEUs. There is still a lot that is not determined about the continuing education requirement for brokers. There's some forecasting going on. This is what we know so far. It's a long process, is what I'm going to tell you. The arrow at the beginning is where we are now. We are not even in this process yet. And the reason behind that is that customs is doing a lot behind the scenes right now to get their program for selecting accreditors put together. There will be the people getting trained, the brokers. There will be parties that are training brokers. And then there will be accreditors who look at proposed trainings and say, yes, this counts. You can give this and offer credit for it. Then there's also going to be CBP, who brokers are going to keep track of their credits and then submit them to customs at the triennial period. One nice thing that customs has said is that if you take the exam during that triennial period, you will not need to have credits for the upcoming triennial report. If you take the exam in 2025, you do not need to have credits for the 2027 triennial report, because customs figures you just took the exam and you studied a lot and you are current on what the requirements are. The goal behind CEUs is to make that license that you have more valuable, because we're showing we take this accreditation, we take this license very seriously, and we maintain it. Recently, customs put out a request for information from potential accreditors and then met with potential accreditors. We were some of the people who met with customs as interested in being accreditors and as in having thoughts on what accreditors should bring to the table and how the process should work. The next step is that sometime in January, Customs is going to put out a request for quote, essentially, an RFP to those who are interested in being accreditors. Potential accreditors will apply. Then Customs will select them. Then they will spend months working together to set the criteria for what trainings need to have and the process for accreditation. Once that gets started, they will set up websites where trainers can submit for credit. Trainers will get credit for training. Brokers will attend trainings. Brokers will track their trainings and their credits, and they will prove it at their triennial. The first triennial, where it is forecasted that we will need to submit CEU proof, is in 2027. Customs is going to prorate the credit requirement. You need one a month, basically. So if they only get the program started 5 months into it, they're only going to require 31 credits instead of 36 credits. It's going to be a little while before trainings that are offered by most trainers are going to be accredited. In the meantime, all CBP trainings are accredited. CBP says if we talked about it, it's worth it. So going to a CBP conference, you're going to get a lot of credits for those. Attending a webinar that CBP puts on, you get credits for that. There are ways to get credits even before Customs has the process set up. We will keep you updated as this goes. We plan to request that all of our webinars have CBP accreditation, just like they have NCB FAA accreditation. Currently, Customs has said that, in their opinion, webinars like this that are about Customs business that help you be compliant would qualify for CEUs, but we'll keep you updated on how that works and how you can get credits by attending webinars. I do not expect to see our trainings be accredited by CBP until middle or end of next year. I think middle 2024 is if CBP and the accreditors work super, super hard and get things set up very quickly, which is not usually what we see in processes that are required by the government. Not that they don't work super hard, but that they turn around quickly. That's usually not something that we see. There are a lot of resources that we recommend. We recommend that if you are interested in being a broker, or that if you are a licensed broker, you stay up to date with the Customs Bulletin. If you are a nerd like me, it's very interesting and fun. You can find rulings that Customs headquarters overwrites. You can find lists of who's applying for trademark protection. You can find recent court cases. Some of them are fascinating. You also need to stay up to date with the CFR and the other required references. Customs puts out the notice of the license examination. That's where you'll find information on the pass rate. That's where you'll find information on how to get the sample exam and how to register. There's also a Customs broker page on CBP's website that tends to be really helpful, as well as a Customs broker modernization page on the website. Also super helpful. There is a link to all of the past licensing exams and a link to the CEU page on their website. That is a good one to take a look at if you are currently a licensed broker. They are putting a question of the week on. Once a week or so, there's a new question and answer that is something that the trade has asked. It's very helpful. And the last link is the Federal Register notice for CEUs for licensed customs brokers. There is a very big discussion of questions that we asked and the way Customs answered in that link. It's very interesting, and you can find a lot of detail in there. We offer free attendance to the CBLE prep course to an applicant. You would need to purchase copies of the reference materials and pay the exam registration fees. We hope that you apply. Here is a link to it. And we'll send out an instruction letter on how to get the NCB FAA code credit with the recording and materials. Thanks for joining us. Send us any questions that you have and have a fantastic rest of your day.